But first of all, let me get this out of the way. Bob Huggins is okay. He's coaching today. Obviously, we had a scare the other day. Obviously, he's been seen by the medical care, so I will talk about medical care a little bit, Cindy. But everything's fine. Obviously, we have a game this afternoon in TCU, and his checkup went fine. A little bit of misfires, so he'll continue to lead our team into the NCAAs and the Big 12. Cindy said I'd talk about our goals, our dreams of what we're heading as an athletic department, and we'll do it very briefly, and then I'll open up real quick for any questions you may have. But just starting this past fall, we had a great football season, a 10-win season, first time or ninth time in it had a 10-win season in our history of our football program. Women's soccer did an outstanding job, finishing runners-up in the NCAA Division I soccer. Coach Nikki Brown has done a great job with that program. Kadisha Buchanan, if you weren't aware, one of our elite soccer players won the Herman Trophy in women's soccer. The Herman Trophy is kind of the equivalent to the Heisman Trophy in football. So it was a great accomplishment for the entire program, as well as the women's soccer program, this fall. Finished number 2 in the country and had a run there for a number of weeks being a number 1 team. So we'll continue to build off that, and I know we'll be excited to see what Nikki can bring home in the future. Most importantly, before I jump into our winter sports, is just talking about the academics. Cindy said we have over 450 student athletes that compete at the highest levels, both athletically and academically, and one of my roles and responsibilities to making sure that our student athletes across the board is educated. They have a great experience while they're in Morgantown, spending their 4 or 5 years of eligibility. But the things that I'm most proud of, we had 12 teams that finished the fall semester with a GPA over 3.0 or greater as an overall team for this fall. We had 49, thank you. We had 49 student athletes who finished with a GPA over 4.0. We had 57% of our student athletes who did finish with a GPA over 3.0 or greater, and 13 teams with a cumulative GPA of greater than a 3.0. So that's something that we don't probably talk about enough in athletics. We talk about all the accomplishments on the field, on the court, but what our student athletes are also doing in the classroom, I know will make you all proud, makes me proud. As I tell our student athletes each and every day, I'm proud of what they will accomplish athletically, but I'm more proud come that graduation day they walk across that stage. So they understand that, they understand the importance of that. Our coaches have done a great job. This isn't done without a lot of teamwork and focus by our coaches and student athletes to make sure that happens. Our winter sports, obviously having a great winter sports with both men's and women's basketball. Men's basketball has been consistently ranked in the top 15 throughout the season. We'll break into the top 10. We have a couple hiccups along the way, but in and out, playing in the Big 12 conference has been a challenge. It's a grind for us, a great basketball conference, and we continue to see great strides made there. Same thing with Coach Carey in women's basketball. He's done a great job. Unfortunately, he has a limited bench right now. A lot of injuries, ACL injuries to several of his players, incoming players. So the depth right now in the women's basketball team is a little slim. But again, he's carried that team in the top 25 most of the year. Our rifle program, I told John Hamm I'm a little disappointed. We're ranked number 2 right now, trying to figure that out. I was asked the question last year about how do I evaluate John Hammond as a coach? Back-to-back national championship. His team had a 3.8 GPA, cumulative GPA as a program. I said, well, he needs to finish number 1 that needs that GPA up to 3.9. So, that's pretty easy evaluations year in and year out. Our gymnastic program right now is ranked in the top 20. Jason's doing a great job with that as well. So a lot of great things happening on the athletic fields and athletic courts around Morgantown. The thing I talk about a lot is our facilities. If you hadn't had the chance, we finished the east side concourse of Mountaineer Field last year, working on the west side currently. Had very positive feedback about that. Same thing with the Coliseum, a 47-year-old building that we just finished the concourse. If you hadn't had a chance to come to a Mountaineer game in the Coliseum and see the changes that are made there, some great strides, great vision of the architects and people putting all that together. That's something that we're very proud of, and we'll continue looking at our facilities and our upgrades to those as we continue to move forward with the vision of being in the Big 12 Conference. Our Mountaineer Athletic Club, I want to introduce real quick if you have not met him. Ben, stand up real quick. Ben Murray has just been named the director. He's replaced Matt Borman, who's held that position for a number of years. Ben has been on staff and was promoted to this position. So a lot of weight put on his shoulders with the vision that I have for our athletic facilities and can keep growing our athletic programs. Lastly, the Big 12 Conference, before I open it up for some questions, a lot of people last year, we were talking in the mist, and President Gee and the board of the Big 12 Conference has really led us through that this year, making sure what we look like as a conference. As you've seen in the media reports, we have decided to remain at 10-member institutions. We felt that we were very strong at 10-member institutions at this time. We'll continue. Obviously, our media rights don't expire till the 24-25 academic year. We feel very solid as a conference of what we're doing nationally with our teams. A lot of times it's looked at as, a psychological advantage, or disadvantage that people talked about being a 10-member team conference. I look at it the opposite of that. I look at it very positive. We're the only conference that plays a true round robin in basketball. We're the only conference that plays everybody in football. We will start up a championship game next December for the first time in a number of years in the Big 12 in the football championship as well. I did share a story last year that I was in Cleveland, and somebody, during a speaking engagement, somebody asked me the question, why in the world are we in the Big 12 Conference? And I said, I'll give you 30 million reasons why we're in the Big 12 Conference. So it's been a great conference for us. Obviously the travel at times can be a little bit of a grind, but overall the competition of the other land-grant institutions as part of that has been a very, very good fit. Very collegial and looking for the future as well. Again, my goal, just very brief, is just to be, from top to bottom, is to have a comprehensive program. And that goes both athletically as well as academically. It's sometimes doesn't happen fast enough, but I think we're on the right track to have a bright future. We're proud of our past, but I think our future is very bright. So with that, I'll open up for a few questions and we'll go from there. Yes, sir.
This past bowl season, a couple of high-profile players around the country decided not to play in their team's bowl game as they look to protect their health or look towards preparing for their next level of play. Do you see this as a trend that be occurring around the country?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's obviously each individual has his, or in this case, his own right to determine what their future looks like, and of course it's a very violent game. It's a contact game. So when you're playing in there and how that ends up impacting your future as a professional athlete, if you end up playing in the bowl game, getting hurt. But I think from our perspective, and Coach Holgerson does a great job. Is talking about the whole team aspect. It's not an individual game. It's a team game. Fortunately, we haven't been faced with that. Hope we're not faced with that. But again, I think each individual has his right to look at their future and what that's going to impact them one way or another. So we haven't crossed that bridge, but I think it's a new trend that could be starting this past year.
I saw an article recently about the work you, the athletic department, alumni association are doing to help student athletes think of their future and plan for their future after their NCAA career. And I can not only commend that, but I think it's great that we clap today for the grade point averages, which should translate into jobs and what they do. So I can only say I think that's wonderful for the university being doing that, and I imagine that will help the athletes in their next stage of life.
Well, thank you. It's something we started with the Alumni Association. Sean, I think it's here somewhere, Sean Frisbee, who runs the Alumni Association. And again, talking about a comprehensive program, it's from top to bottom. It's preparing our student athletes for life after graduation. And this was one step in that direction to say, after that ball goes flat, what are you going to do with your life? And that's preparing them for jobs. You know, unfortunately, they don't have a lot of time to get that work experience just because of the amount of hours they spend in athletics and on their given sport. But what they do have is the work ethic, the leadership skills, the time management skills, and I can go on and on that employers are often looking for. And that's something that we've teamed up with our Alumni Association to try to build that program and to make it so that our student athletes have the abilities to gain great employment after their time at Morgantown. So thank you for saying that. I'll have one more question and then we'll turn it over to Carolyn. Bill?
Talk about facilities. Talk about what you have going on now. What's your priorities?
My priorities on the facility side, obviously, it was football. You have to look at as a big picture. That is our driving force as an athletic department and making sure our football program, for a number of reasons. It's not only it makes you all proud to be from West Virginia, be proud alumni from West Virginia University. And we don't take that lightly, and making sure that, and I hate to use the term, but it's what we term as keeping up with the Joneses. And when you look at our facilities, we've done a pretty good job in football, but other facilities we're probably a little bit behind in that regard, especially in our Olympic sport area. I can go on and on, but probably the main thing in football, right now looking at is, and we're putting together more of a package of this, is looking at our locker room, our medical area, and the operations area for football, which would ultimately end up being about a $30 million project to get that up to speed. We're also looking at the Coliseum. I've continued improvements in there, putting suites in the Coliseum. However, before I can do that, we have to build a new Olympic sport weight room, which we have plans for that, which is about a 12,000 foot square area for our student athletes, which would benefit about 400 student athletes day in and day out using that. The Shell building, I came back after about 28 years of being gone. The Shell building's still the same, hadn't changed. Obviously that's 28 years and probably the 4 or 5 before I was even there. So, there's some updates, things that we need to catch up on, and that's our vision. That's working with Ben and the Mountaineer Athletic Club to make that happen. I know it's not going to happen at the pace I want it to happen. I probably wanted it done yesterday, but looking at the future, making sure that we have a plan and a vision where we want to head. The most important thing is protecting West Virginia University, and what I mean by that is, you hear about conference realignments, and President Gee and I have talked about this, is making sure that we are in the best place possible if anything ever happens. And my job is to make sure that our football, basketball, as well as our Olympic sport programs are competing at the highest levels. Our facilities are there to retain our coaches as well as recruit student athletes at the highest levels, and that's our vision to work through that. So there's plenty of projects, a lot of pressure on Ben to raise a lot of funds, but I think we have a bright future ahead of us. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Carolyn Long.